Mr. Prime Minister, Mrs. Gonzi, Your Excellencies, the Chief Rabbi, my friend Admore, it's so wonderful to see you sitting next to one of my other great friends in this community, Tommaso Caputo. It makes a wonderful interfaith statement in and of itself. Ladies and gentlemen, we are here this evening to remember. We remember not to denigrate any nation or to indulge in self-righteous indignation, but to learn a lesson that at root teaches something important about ourselves that we dare not forget. That lesson? That the failure to love our neighbor is but a short distance from ignoring our neighbor, and that disregard of our neighbor is but a short distance from silently tolerating political, racial, gender, and other illicit forms of oppression and hate. With the support of the Prime Minister, Auberge has made it possible to remember one young victim of the Holocaust, one of an estimated 6 million Jewish victims of murder. The exhibit invites us to remember that the Holocaust is not just a grievous crime against humanity, it is a warning flag against any modern practice that denigrates human life as expendable or manipulable. The Holocaust of the 1940s is of such magnitude of death that it scarcely allows comparison. But let us at least see that the suicide bomber in Moscow, or Madrid, or London, or New York, the slave trader who imprisons young women in prostitution or the drug trade, and the tribal and ethnic madness of Rwanda, Eritrea, the Sudan, the Balkans, Afghanistan, are cousins of the Holocaust, if not siblings. Anne Frank's diary is not a story of defeat, however, but perseverance in the face of adversity. My late father was part of the B-17 Flying Fortress Squadron that is sometimes said to have defeated Germany. But you know, it was not Germany that was defeated, but rather Hitler's misleading madness of hate. Like the noble spirit of Anne Frank, Germany as a people persevered, and today the German nation occupies a position of international achievement in matters of economy and community. Anne Frank's personal recounting of the story of the Holocaust, however, does something very important. It put names on the 6 million. It makes an otherwise incomprehensible crime capable of being felt personally and tangibly. And in feeling the depth of her personal story and the death and the fear of others that she recounts along the way, we see that there are far more victims of the Holocaust and of modern exercises of hate than those whose hair and shoes and eyeglasses and suitcases still line the dismal hall of Auschwitz. I know they still line the dismal hall because I saw it for myself but a few years ago. I know Auschwitz, or really, for me, Auschwitz, because the father of my father, the B-17 bombardier, was a Polish intellectual whose dream and preparation to teach at the world-renowned Jagellonian in Krakow died when the Kmiec family scattered into the United States and England and France to escape the death camps, not as a Jew, but as an intellectual who suffered often the same fate. Years later, while Dean of the Catholic University of America, I would be invited to teach at the Jagellonian, and I would see firsthand the lists of murdered faculty, a list that very likely would have contained my grandfather's name had he not forfeited his homeland and his scholarly aspirations. Of course, if the name Jan Kmiec did appear on the long list of humanities and science faculties murdered by the Nazis, I would not be here to remember with you today. Remember what? Certainly not that any single nation, as I said, was intrinsically evil. No, we remember that which animated the hate of the Holocaust can strike any people and any nation. It is a problem of human pride, of self-centeredness, of that most radical rejection of faith that substitutes man's whim for God's command. We also remember that today's hatreds, genocide based on race, religion, ethnicity, gender, or sexual orientation, are the corruptions of the human heart. And those corruptions have collateral effects. You know, it is odd that we call one of those effects irregular migration. For what human being would consciously, that is regularly, stay put in the face of such offensiveness and risk? There is nothing irregular about escaping that. The United States welcomed my grandfather. Today, Malta receives a significant number of migrants for the same reason. The Diary of Anne Frank asks us to remember honestly the common reason for migration, man's inhumanity to man. And having remembered, we are asked one more thing. Not to look the other way in the face of persecution and prejudice and hatred and oppression, but to welcome and help, as best we can, those who have been so mistreated. This is why Malta makes efforts to resettle migrant populations. It is why my embassy and others have been especially privileged to do the same. You see, it is a privilege to help the modern-day equivalents of Anne Frank persevere, for it does something very important. It amplifies love. And in so doing, God willing, alla promette, we will avert the seed of profound hatred represented by the Holocaust from ever again taking root in the human soul. Thank you.
Thank you for letting me share